Hi, thank you for joining us today for our Emotional Wellness Through Yoga educational series. This week, we're talking about exploring happiness beyond the external. And sometimes I feel like society is pushing us to have this perfectly happy life, and that everybody else has it except for us, and that we're always trying to, or I feel like I'm always trying to fix something that is broken instead of just being in the moment, um, being okay with the way things are, always striving to be better, of course, but sometimes things happen that are outside of our control. And if we're always relying on everything to be perfect, we won't get anything done, and two, it's we're never really going to find joy, because it's not like that. It's not a perfect world. If you have a human life, it's like suffering is part of living. It's also part of growing, and that's something that I'd like to share with you through this series, is just, through all the painful things that have happened throughout my life, that when I look back on it now, I can see where those things have up leveled me. Did I want that? No. But it was part of just my life? Yes. And so I had choices along the way. I didn't always do so well when things didn't, the external events got to be too much. But through yoga, I feel like I've developed some skills and some tools, and I'd like to share that with you as well. Hopefully, after the presentation, you'll see that our joy and or misery is really, it's not about the external things that happen, but it's more about our perceptions of those things that are happening in our life, our internal feelings that we create around those events. Um, so our, our thoughts generate how we feel. Um, if I'm constantly chasing what I consider to be the perfect life, or always being happy, it really creates more misery, because then I compare, that I didn't get to that level. So did I make it or did I not make it? Well, life hasn't been like that. It's Happiness has always been a moving target for me. And my underlying discontent has always followed me. I can move locations, I can, move into a different home, I can move to a different city, but wherever I go, that it still follows you, right? Um, we think sometimes that if we had more money in the bank, or we had that one person to love, or that if we just lost some weight, if I had this awesome car, or a mansion, or whatever it is, then I'll be happy, right? But what we'll discuss today is that even people who get those things, or when you get those things, if you think about it, how long did that happiness last? And through yoga, teaches us this, the whole underlying lifestyle of yoga. It's teaching us that one, material things, they come and go, and that doesn't bring us everlasting happiness, and that those outside things that we are wanting to complete us never will. So in this journey, you have to go inside and find that place in you where it doesn't rely on it, that you're not on an emotional roller coaster. Do you have personality? Yes, of course you do. Can you be sad about something? Yes, of course you can. But when we get on this more of a balance, where we don't react too much to something that happens to us negative, or on the opposite side of that, that when everything's wonderful, that do we make meaning about who we are? It's like, okay, for an example, if I have a classroom full of students, my classroom's packed, and I start to feel like, wow, I am a good teacher, or, they're coming here to take my yoga class, right? Well, then, 2 weeks later, the class has maybe one person in it. Does that mean that I'm not a good yoga teacher? And that's how my life had been based on I've in the past. And then I would go down this rabbit hole of misery about, oh, I shouldn't even get up here, and I shouldn't even teach yoga class, just one of those things. And then uh, it's just, I've been learning not to make meaning out of those things, because it's like deep inside, you have to know who you are and that you're bringing something to the table. And each one of us, as I go through the yoga teacher trainings, I tell everybody, each one of us brings a different gift. And when we try to be another teacher, or, teach exactly like they do, sometimes it won't ring authentic. So, living an authentic life, having an authentic lifestyle, um, speaking as you is so much better than trying to be somebody else. When we have the car, we have the house and whatnot, that those things are temporary. It could easy come, easy go. It could be gone in a second. And if you're basing all of your meaning on your external or your material things, it's like, it's sure enough, at some point, if it was existing, it could also be gone. So I have found out that, these material things, they can make me tremendously happy. But after some time, the ecstasy sort of leaves. And then there you are again. And there's actually a study about this. And so there's this concept in neuroscience that's called the hedonic treadmill. And so when we look at the word of hedonism, it's an ethical theory that pleasure and desires is the highest good and the proper aim of human life, and that there's many forms of pleasure and varying intensities. But when we look at the hedonic treadmill, it's a concept in psychology suggesting that people tend to return to a stable level of happiness despite significant positive or negative life changes. The idea, it's rooted in research by psychologists such as Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell. It demonstrates that while events like winning the lottery or experiencing a setback may temporarily either elevate or lower your happiness, that after some time, individuals typically adapt and revert back to their baseline level of happiness. And that's what we're talking about today, is establishing a baseline level of happiness, and then having tools that when you realize that you're veering away from whatever baseline it is you want to be at, that there's tools that we have to pull us out of that, to catch it before it gets too bad and bring yourself back, right? But why does this occur? Well, in psychology and the hedonic treadmill and the studies that they have done, they're showing a couple of things, that there's this adaptation. So humans, it's proven that we're incredibly adaptable, that we quickly get used to new circumstances, whether they're good or bad, right? And that also humans have a tendency to have comparison. We often compare ourselves to others, to our previous state. So for me, social media can be it's a positive platform because it gets the word out about these workshops and about our trainings and whatnot. But at the same time, it also can be a negative platform for me, because you can go down and I can start comparing myself to yoga teachers, and it's just it can change my perception of myself, how we and what and contentment that I have in my own life. And we all know that social media can be it could be it's not real. That everything that's posted, it can be staged, and there we are comparing ourselves to something staged. It's the same as growing up and comparing ourselves to the models in the magazines, right? In my age, in my day growing up, and you're comparing yourselves to people in the magazines, you didn't realize that there was a Photoshop, happening, or it just wasn't always exactly as presented. But I spent my entire life, having a negative body image, and just a lot of shame around what my body was. And it wasn't, it was normal. I was just, uh, but I was comparing myself to things that may have been photoshopped, or somebody who their entire job or life was to work out, to pose in a bathing suit, whereas I was living a real life. And then when I went to compare that, and just found so much unhappiness with it, that it really took away a lot of joy that I could have had at the time. But uh, where I feel that this is needed right now is that, after the shutdown, when COVID happened, I mean, that was just crazy. It's like something that you never thought that was possible in life. It happened, and we literally shut the world down for this illness that could spread so easily, and people were dying from it. So, I mean, we got shut down, we became isolated, and there was no preparation for when that came. But I feel like it was the beginning of a mental health crisis. It was, and then especially if you were a child going through this, and that's what you knew. I mean, it was crazy. People, you weren't allowed to go to school. It was just really isolating. And when you get isolated, the mind starts to take over. And so back to the hedonic treadmill. Let me get back to this. There's adaptation, there's comparison, and then there's actual desires. And once a goal is achieved, what we find out is that there's a new desire there. And it perpetuates the cycle of striving without lasting fulfillment. So the hedonic treadmill relates to our constant striving for happiness. And there was a study, and it was done by Brickman Coates and Janoff Bullman, where it studied three categories of people. There were lottery winners in one category, paralyzed accident victims in another category, and a control group. And so I found this extremely interesting, that the winners of the lottery were, ecstatic at first, but after a year, they returned back to their original state of happiness, no matter how much money they won. And in fact, we hear stories about lottery winners who are just miserable, actually, way more miserable after they get that big bank account, and it changes their life forever. And it doesn't always equate to happiness. So, in fact, that there was a study done, and it was conducted by the National Endowment for Financial Education, and it found out that nearly 70% of lottery winners end up bankrupt within just a few years. In fact, most people in the hedonic treadmill, their study, that it only took a year for winners to become unhappy or get back to their baseline of whatever that was when they won the lottery. So research indicates that they have the same level of happiness before and after the win of the lottery. So when we tell ourselves that we can be happy when our bank account is like this, or when we have this, and when I move into the new house, then life will, I'll become happy, or when whatever, right? But what I'm hoping that we can see here is that we don't have to wait for happiness, is that we can be happy now. We can be happy now. um, we'll come back to this treadmill. But when we remember about all the topics that we've already studied, when we understand the vagal nerve, how the body's nervous system is wired, and that going more deep within ourselves to tap in and tune in to when things are feeling not right. So, we get the gut feeling and we start getting sick to our stomachs and our digestion changes. And when we realize that stress is starting to take over in our lives, and so I want us to be able to tap in internally to be able to catch these things that might be happening inside of us, and then have tools to halt that going down uh, that um, that rabbit hole, and be able to catch it, nip it in the butt, and then get back to living our lives and living our lives with purpose. And that's another thing, is that I have realized that when I'm in service to others, or I'm doing something that I feel is going to be productive in society and be useful, that's when I find the happiness, the most happy. When I'm doing something that's going to benefit me, and that it's in self-service, I have found that that doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't give me lasting peace. So yoga and the lifestyle of yoga has really actually brought peace and joy into my life. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to discover for yourself, does moving through our physical body, um, and working off where we don't feel well, do you feel joyous for a moment? And then how do we hold on to that inner peace and joy, right? And not relying upon external things. And we've talked about this before, is where we don't have mirrors in the yoga practice, because we're wanting, the goal is, the lesson is in this, is that you find happiness within yourself. You find that when you're moving in poses, and do I feel stuck in this pose? And then it teaches you to rely on your breath, to can I breathe while I'm in this pose? Well, one, if I can't breathe while I'm in the pose, I may not be doing the pose right, or it doesn't feel right within my own physical body. I've found that I've been so disconnected from my physical body that I don't even know. I mean, I don't even tap in. I feeling my hand or my foot on a yoga mat. I'm not even when I came to yoga, I wasn't even that present. When it was like, okay, feel your seat and take a deep breath, push down to extend up. I mean, I really felt like I was doing that. But what I realized a few years into my yoga practice is that I hadn't ever, I wasn't even connecting into my own hand. I was so busy in my mind. I was so preoccupied with, being busy in life, that it took me a long time to connect into my, physical body and see what it actually felt like in there. And the reason why, this all ties in emotional wellness, wellness through yoga, it's not replacing therapy at all. There's we talk about traumatic things that happen in our life, or things that happen in our life that we just can't make sense of, and so we seek therapists, and we get therapy for these things. I have never been able to, one, find I've tried therapy, marriage therapy, and what I found there was that it was not useful for me in any way, shape, or form. But what I found was that the real peace that I found, and where I could really think things out, was after a yoga practice, when I could be still in my own physical body. So, I mean, there's many ways to work with our emotional wellness, and this is just one little piece of the pie that might be helpful for you. That if you're you've been talking about your story, and every time I talk about my story, I put myself back into that emotional feeling that I had during that event, and then my body starts to respond to that, and I just might turn on my stressors, and I just, I go right back to that place. So sometimes I don't want to talk about my story. I just need to get in there and, roll out my yoga mat and move. And I feel lucky enough to even know that component exists for me, that I can roll my yoga mat out and somehow something magical happens for me on the yoga mat, that I put my foot here and I put my foot there. And then after years of study and then, doing the yoga teacher trainings, what I've understood is that energy gets stuck in my physical body, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. That also brings pain in my physical body, that or tightness in my physical body. And that when I start working with alignment in my physical body, then I find a little bit of space, and in that space I can move, I can breathe, I get a little bit more range of motion, and then things start to feel better for me. But in the study of all of this is that you find out that there's energy around all of this. That's when you get into the chakras, working with that. Then I've studied into the endocrine system, and I realized that, when you have stress happening in your body starts to release chemicals. And then when we've done this in neuroscience through, emotional wellness through yoga, is that I found out that our gut, it just like one of the first things for me is that my digestion goes awry. I'm under a lot of stress. My digestion goes off. When my digestion goes off, what's happening is there's a whole chemical response happening in your body, and it's sending chemicals out to react to that. And it turns into a vicious cycle. And then before I know it, my cortisol levels are extremely high. My blood pressure is extremely high. And what I've realized that, sometimes I don't even have to think about all of that. But a byproduct of moving through a yoga practice for me has put my body back into a healthy place, mentally, emotionally. And then once that happens, then I can, relax a little bit. And then, the beautiful thing about this process is that I've found that if you just get just one thing in order, that everything else starts to line up. It opens up for three or four more different things. I know that I don't want to rely on medication. That is a big thing for me right now, is that seeing how much medication is out there and it's being prescribed, that again, it's like a Band-Aid being put on something that is not doing well. They tell us that, you take this pill and it'll work with your emotional, it'll calm your emotions down. And it's like, if I take the pill, then I have side effects for that pill. And then the side effects are going to, I go in and I see a provider for that. And then they want to give me another pill for the symptoms of the side effects that are happening. And, I just remember seeing my grandmother, she had the Monday through Sunday pill box. And I thought, I don't want to end up like that. And and that's what I feel I'm seeing in society, is that there's Band-Aids being used instead of getting to the holistic healing and the wellness, fixing the underlying problems. So, I mean, I don't know how to fix all the underlying problems. And, I don't think we need to know everything about everything. But I do know that through my yoga practice and moving with alignment and carefully, being in the practice while I'm doing the practice, the presence, having gratitude, these things make me feel better. And when I feel better, I feel like that I have stopped this vicious cycle from getting worse. So I'm as we have this understanding of all of the external things that could be our we're relying on to be happy, healthy and whole, instead of getting to getting to learn about ourselves, to getting to know ourselves. It's like I've been lucky enough to have good teachers who have, really driven this point home. The teachers, when I have had really, really good teachers, what the teachers were doing were, they were there, they were to guide, but they were to guiding me back home. And their goal was to get me to rely on myself and not to be relying on them. They were always pointing me back home, which was inside of me. So through my yoga mat, I feel like I've found that. And has it stopped all of that? Am I perfect? Am I doing, perfectly well right now? No. Things happen. It's just life, right? But when it does, I know where to go. And and so I'm hoping that you'll utilize this a bit more. We'll use breathing techniques. Breathing techniques, pranayama is what it's called in the process, in the yoga lifestyle. And prana is energy or life force, and yama is a restraint. So by using our breath, whether we add more or restrain our breath, and different patterns that we use with our breathing, it directly affects our nervous system. It's the quickest thing that we can do for our nervous system to catch us ourselves when we're starting to go down these rabbit holes, or when 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 you're experiencing pain, any kind of pain in life, that's when we start to get curious about all of these things. We seek help outside, and it's great to seek help outside. There's amazing books, and we recommend those all the time. The books that we're reading and I find useful in some way, I'll make a recommendation to you based on how much it's actually helped me and in whatever ways it's helped me. But it's all leading you back to being inside of yourself, right? Finding that you're not broken. There's nothing that you need to fix. We have misidentified ourselves. We take the labels that society easily puts on us, because I mean, you think about it. There it's products. There's so many products that are trying to be sold to you. It's consumer. The free trade system. People are always trying to sell us something, and of course, you have to feel like you're broken, or you need this to be whole, happy, and healthy. And when you study these texts about with yoga, is that it's telling you that your happiness and your joy is already deep within you. Satchidananda, it already it resides within you. We just have to uncover, get rid of all of the things that we're identifying that's not true about us, that we are happy and we are whole beings. We already are that. So sometimes just getting on the yoga mat, you don't have to know all of these things. I mean, make it your own experiment, make it something for yourself to see if it does work for you. If it doesn't work for you, then no need to do it. But you're not taking medication to do this. You're not adding chemicals to your body. You're relying on everything that you have here, just going within yourself. There's, gratitude, being grateful for what we have. And back to the hedonic treadmill. It's like, how can we establish our our baseline level of happiness? Well, having gratitude. I had a teacher say, want what you have. Wow, that's a concept. I've always wanted something that I didn't have, that there was something more out there, that it would take that to complete my happiness. And what yoga does is it points you back and it said, no, you know, what what do you have now and what's currently in your life that you can be happy for now? And that has been the journey, is going inside, because when I find the peace and joy inside of myself, that is unshakable. That's unrockable. It's like I uncover and I start to let go of some of the labeling that I put on myself. It's not somebody doing this to me. It's me doing this to me. And so when I've been willing to let go of labels and stop worrying about what everybody on the outside thinks about what I'm doing, I just, get out here, do the best that I can do, share what's been useful for me without and trying to guide you home as I've been guided home. The happiness and joy, I found that. And so when the storms come and things, threaten to shake my, well-being where I am now, I remind myself, yeah, just sit sometimes and breathe. Or, there's things that you can do. I walk outside and I look at the sky and I think, amazing. Or I'll go outside and I'll look at the moon and I'll just think about, how much importance I put on the external of what people think about me. And then I realize, just being a blib in this world, that it's just, I'm such a small little piece of all of this, and there's so much more than me. And just having gratitude for, having these small things. I go out there and I watch the drama of the chickens, right? And they are like watching a Spanish novella. They have likes, dislikes. They like some chickens, they don't like some chickens. There's some chickens that are all by themselves, and sometimes, they don't have any friends. And I'm like, God, I mean, that happens in chickens too. It happens in the animal world as well. And I'm thinking, there's nothing wrong with that chicken. She's perfectly, in fact, she's probably the sweetest chicken there is. So then, but anyway, it's like you just see this, it's not just out there. I mean, it's out there, but it's also here. And I think, well, if that's the case, then maybe I am okay inside. And then I start going down that journey. And it's not um, my perception, it's more I want to feel the wholeness. So anyway, every time I roll out the mat, that's what I'm going to do, is to try to be present in the moment and just see what gifts are there. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. Now, emotional wellness and regulation, and some of these, there's the neuroscience behind it, there's the vagus nerve, and all of these techniques. And then there's a trauma yoga therapy, where I feel like we're doing something just a little bit different than that, is that I'm assuming that you can connect into your physical body, and that you can just, by just being there for a few moments, you can breathe into that, connection of feeling your hand on the mat and whatnot. And if we're at a place like that and utilizing our breath and whatnot, I'm just, we guide you through with alignment, because I know for a fact that physical alignment and the physical poses opens up for energy flow. I know that if I have an injury in my body, which I'll be doing a whole series about this, about, spinal health and, having injuries, and that if I work in alignment, it's a very safe way to work, and it's opening up energy into a place that might not have energy flowing. And when I get energy moving into those places, when I bring awareness and I bring my attention to these areas of my own physical body, that I can open up for energy flow, and that with energy flowing into an area, there is a chance for healing. right? So when we teach and we teach with alignment, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's alignment for you at where you are now. These practices are meant to meet you where you are now so that you can start to open up energy that maybe hasn't been flowing in a particular area. So when we do the yoga practice, it's not going to be a fast flowing, moving through, butt kicking type of practice, but it's going to be a little bit of a slower practice so that you can start to connect into and to get your own feelings about the practice. I don't want to guide you to what you should feel. It's like, no, what are you feeling in this pose and in this practice, and how do you feel about your inside after you get the information that you need to ponder upon. And then you do the breathing techniques that we guide you through. And then we take you through a physical practice that is actually structured in a way that's specific to working whatever topic it is that we're teaching on. And then you get to make the decisions yourself on this journey. Does it work for you? Some of it, take what you want, leave the rest behind. And that's all it is an invitation to go onto a wellness journey for yourself. And we're doing this together. We're going through this journey together. And your experience will be different than my experience. And that I want that for you. I want you to have your very own experience on this journey and see what it does, because then when you find any kind of healing or wellness, if you find any kind of healing or wellness through the education that we're providing on this platform, then I'm hoping that by your understanding that you'll go out into the world and you'll share this in the way that you understand. And you'll be able to speak to a group of people that only you really understand because of your past experiences in life, all the things that we feel that were so negative for us, but in some way actually happen to up level us. And this is what we found through this journey. It gives hope to somebody who might not have hope. And I'm just really grateful that you're here with us. And as this series grows, I'm really hope that you find some value in this and that you're able to turn this into something that is teachable or shareable into the world. And we just make this world a much better place. So we'll have the physical practice that's recorded separately. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the mat. I'm looking forward to seeing you in our weeks to come. We have some great workshops coming your way. So let's pull out your mats and get everything prepared for our pranayama breathing techniques and our physical practice. And I always welcome any feedback that you may have. So have a fabulous day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.